So hello, everyone. I'm David Germano, the Executive Director of the Contemplative Science Center, and I'm just going to give a brief introduction today for today's teacher. This is the inaugural launch of a special extended instance of the virtual meditation on the lawn, which we've been doing Monday mornings until now, and we're going to continue that, but we're also planning to offer a special extended instance on the second Wednesday of each month at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so the format will be a little bit longer than our Monday meditations, about 15 minutes. And then there'll be 10 minutes of questions and answers, and we'll use the question and answer function in the lower area of your screen. So feel free to post a question that you might have. And we're so fortunate today to have with us an old friend of the University of Virginia, and also really one of the great meditation teachers in the US over the last number of decades, Sharon Salzberg. Sharon co-founded the Insight Meditation Society at Barre, Massachusetts in 1974, which has been one of the most important centers over the last half a century for the spread of contemplation in the US. And her teaching has been informed by extensive studies over the years with a variety of prominent contemplative teachers from across Asia and diverse Buddhist traditions, as well as others. And over that time, she's published a number of very influential books, including Loving Kindness, The Revolutionary Art of Happiness, A Heart as Wide as the World, Real Happiness, The Power of Meditation, Real Love, Real Happiness at Work, and now Real Change, Mindfulness to Heal Ourselves in the World, which came out this fall. And particularly of note has been her inspiring leadership on promoting compassion and kindness in contemplative practices, which you may be surprised to know was once upon a time quite controversial in contemplative circles in the US. And its widespread acceptance today is in no small part due to Sharon. And so it's with great pleasure that I welcome Sharon back to University of Virginia today.
Thank you so much. I think you may have named my next book, Heart as Wild as the World. I like that. And it has a lot of implications for us. And I'm so delighted to be with you all. I have a sense of being back there, which is a very beautiful feeling. I was also telling David the last time I was actually physically there was a giant snowstorm, which he might recall. And so I'm now contemplating being on the lawn without the snow and moving forward in my imagination. So I wanted to lead a brief meditation, and I'll just say a few words about it before we do it. So I've always, from the very beginning of my acquaintance with meditation practice, thought of it as a kind of skills training. It's a training in greater awareness, greater balance. And balance was a word that I used to not have much affinity for. I thought of it kind of like mediocrity or something like that. And it was only later through experience and experimentation that I saw balance as a state of harmony out of which the things I wanted so much could emerge. I longed for not feeling so fragmented, not feeling so divided and all over the place, to have a sense of centeredness, to have insight, understanding, not to have that sense I had when I was younger of kind of stumbling around and not having much vision or a sense of purpose, really. There's so much that I wanted, and it's easy to get into this mode of like, I'm going to grab at that and I'm going to make this happen. And meditation doesn't work that way. It's based on the assumption that when we bring our system into balance, the things we want will emerge all by themselves. So it's greater awareness, greater balance, and greater connection. Certainly a profound sense of connection to ourselves and also somehow to others. I've always thought it was kind of peculiar that maybe you're all alone, maybe your eyes are closed. It looks like the most solitary activity in the world. But one of the insights that arises is how profoundly connected we all are to one another. And so then we bring that into our day-to-day lives. Often meditation practices are done, as I'm sure many of you know, by finding an object of awareness, maybe the feeling of the breath or some other object, resting our attention on that object, and the word is rest. And then as our attention wanders, which it usually will. We dive into the past, we forge ahead into the future, not in a useful way, which could be done, but in a completely useless way, just like laying waste our energy. And then comes that moment when we realize, oh, it's been quite some time since I last felt a breath. And that's considered the really important moment in the practice where we have the chance to be really different. We can let go gently of whatever has taken us away from that primary object. And with kindness toward ourselves, we can come back and begin again. So that's really the movement. We're letting go and beginning again, and letting go and beginning again. And that's why meditation is considered a resilience training. So there's a lot of self-compassion implicit in there. And in the particular practice I'm going to lead, I'm also going to, at some point, be reading a list of words that are values. And we can bring that same kind of self-compassion and awareness to whatever response you may be having to that word that I just read. Maybe it will inspire you. Maybe it will irritate you. And anything is fine. This is not pass fail. It's not a question of forcing yourself or trying to manipulate anything, but getting a much clearer, deeper sense of kind of our internal network, the environment that we are creating and what is motivating us in a more general kind of way, okay? So you can sit comfortably, see if your back can be straight without being strained or overarched. You want to have energy in your body, but also be relaxed. Close your eyes or not, however you feel most at ease. You can start by listening to sound, whether it's the sound of my voice or other sounds. It's a way of relaxing deep inside, allowing your experience to come and go. And if for some reason the breath ultimately is not going to serve you, there'll be other objects that you can choose. Let's start with sound. It's like the sounds can just wash through you. And bring your attention to the feeling of your body sitting, whatever sensations you may discover. Feel the earth supporting you. Feel space touching you. Usually we think about touching space and we think about like picking up our finger and poking it in the air. But space is already touching us. It's always touching us. We can receive it. And bring your attention to the feeling of your breath, just the normal, natural breath. Wherever you feel it most distinctly, maybe that's the nostrils or the chest or the abdomen. You can find that place, bring your attention there and just rest. See if you can feel one breath without concern for it's already gone by, without leaning forward for even the very next breath, just this one. And if you feel the breath does not serve you for whatever reason, you can find some other set of sensations in your body, your hands touching perhaps, something that's already happening. so there can be that quality of rest. And if images or sounds or sensations or emotions should arise, but they're not all that strong, if you can stay connected to the feeling of the breath, just let them flow on by. You're breathing. It's just one breath or just one moment of sensation. But if something does arise quite strongly, it picks you up and whirls you away, you get lost in thought or spun out in a fantasy or you fall asleep, truly don't worry about it. The really important moment comes next, where we have the chance to let go gently and start over again with some kindness toward ourselves. We let go and we begin again. And if you have to do that over and over again, that's totally fine. We say the healing is in the return, not in never having wandered to begin with. It takes a good degree of awareness to notice that we've been lost. And that's okay. We let go, we start over. And now I'm going to add a kind of reflection that's interesting to do from time to time. It culminates in a sense of what's most important for me, what lifts my spirits, where do I go to help cultivate resilience. You may feel anything as I repeat these words, and as I read each word, you can take a few breaths, just take in the word and silently repeat it back to yourself. Notice how much it resonates with you, and truly anything is okay. Inspiration, irritation, boredom, nothing at all, whatever it is. You can observe your response without judgment. Again, this isn't a pass fail exercise, it's about insight into our own guiding value. You're falling out into lots of discursive thinking, planning, etc. You can notice that, see if you can gently let go and come back to the moment. So, succeeding, how does it feel in your body? What's coming up for you in terms of mood, liking, disliking? Connecting. Discovering. Competing. Giving. Shining. Loving. And let's return our attention to just resting on the feeling of the breath, allowing whatever arises to come and go as we rest. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes or lift your gaze, and we'll end the meditation. So thank you for that. And I'm going to welcome back David for the Q&A portion of our gathering.
Great. Thank you so much, Sharon, for that wonderful meditation. And just a reminder to everybody, if you have a question, there's the Q&A section of the Zoom, and you can just click on there and type in your question. I see one right now. But we'll start with the question that was submitted from a student in advance. I'll be graduating soon, looking for a job in a not so thriving economy. Chances are my first full-time job will be one I have to take and not necessarily am excited about. What can I do if my personal values and things that inspire me are simply not present in the job I end up taking or the company I end up working for?
I think there are a couple of things that are really interesting to be exploring. One is, do you really feel a sense of moral injury? You know, are you being asked to do something that really contravenes your most deeply held sense of ethics? In which case, that's really something that one needs to look at and probably get counsel about in the sense of a community, and not trying to figure it out, because the injury in that case is, I think, quite real. But mostly, I think that's often not what people are encountering. what they're encountering is a need to somehow take those values and make them real in terms of particulars. So, for example, you might have a greater aspiration to have an impact on this world, or to make a difference, or to bring more love, more compassion into this world, something like that. And that may not be particularly a part of your job description, but it is something you can bring to life in encounters, in conversations. I was once teaching somewhere and this woman raised her hand and she said she had on the face of it what could be a truly miserable job, which was that she was working in a call-in center handling customer complaints. And as this woman talked about her job, in truth, she was like radiant. And she said, I love everybody. I respect everybody. I treat everyone with respect. I treat everyone with honesty. By the time they get to me, they've been through like 2 or 3 people. They are crazed and I can't always help them, but I'm always truthful. If I say I will get back to you at 2 o'clock, I'll get back to you at 2 o'clock. And I had, ironically enough, just been a complaining customer myself. And I had like a truly awful experience where I felt denigrated and accused of lying. And I mean, all kinds of weird things. And all I was trying to do was get internet access in my apartment. You know, and I thought, oh, look at that, you know, that one can take a kind of determination or commitment to helping people have a better day. And you can make it real with colleagues, with supervisors, with customers, whoever it might be. And that's how I think we really find a sense of meaning.
And then I'm going to combine a couple of questions that are more generally about meditative practice. So one is, as a regular practice, what do you think about taking the time you have and putting it all together in a single day for a longer period versus distributing it into several shorter sessions? And then related to that, how important do you think, you mentioned posture in the practice today, how important do you think it is for posture in a sitting meditation, and how does that affect meditation? And the person said as they get older, it's harder to sit without supporting the back or forget, full lotus. So just some thoughts about that.
I'd say forget full lotus. I mean, different schools will emphasize posture in different ways. My earliest teachers were all either Burmese or had themselves studied in Burma. And so they had a certain approach, which was not very much about posture. It was really just what I had said, see if your back can be straight. But even if you look at, say, Buddha images from Burma, they're all a little slumped over. So I once said somewhere in France, I think, I belong to the Schlumpy school of meditation. It's like they truly do not care. Whereas others, of course, we have this image of a Zen practitioner sitting upright, perfect, just beautifully positioned. And most of us are not going to be like that. So I'd say sit comfortably. It's fine to lie down if that's necessary or important for you. Really, it's not part of my own training. So that would be my response. And in terms of sitting for a longer period, it's an experiment. I think even if you choose to combine those shorter periods, there are still moments, so sometimes we divide meditation practice into that dedicated period where we're sitting or lying down or maybe walking. And our goal for that period of time, our dedication, is to deepen awareness and balance and connection. That's all. Like our vacation plan may come up, but that's not why we are sitting down, say, assuming we're sitting. And then there's what we sometimes call short moments many times. It's remembering to breathe. Like some people tell me, and I've adopted it, in this time, that they maybe write out the email and they don't press send right away. They take a breath or 2 breaths. Then they read it again. And then they decide if they want to send it or not. Or a very classic one these days would be Thich Nhat Hanh saying, don't pick up your phone on the first ring. Let it ring 3 times and breathe. And then you pick it up. Or every now and then, don't multitask. It's like if you're drinking a cup of tea, just drink a cup of tea. Don't also be checking your email and on a conference call at the same time. And you will just be able to feel the warmth of the teacup and smell the tea and taste the tea. Nothing that lasts very long, nothing that's really time consuming, but you could kind of sprinkle some mindfulness throughout the day, and it would be really useful. And as for the length of the formal sitting, it is really an experiment.
And then a question about the practice today. Someone asked, they had strong emotional reactions to some of the words, and they were wondering why.
Well, I think that is also a question of discovery. Not that you sit and ask yourself why, but if you sit and hang out in the space of that strong emotional reaction and just let it percolate, see what it reveals. A lot of these strong emotions, they're very complex, actually. They're compounds. If you got strongly irritated, say, which is a kind of anger, maybe there's sadness in there also. Maybe there's fear in there also. Maybe there's a sense of inability to perform. I don't know. It's like layers upon layers upon layers. And so we hang out with what is happening, even if it's uncomfortable, with interest. And that's sort of the key point, is that we're letting it unfold so that we have a much greater understanding of our experience.
And then a classic question about compassion meditations. How do you find forgiveness for someone when intellectually you recognize you should give it, but emotionally you don't feel capable?
I think it's one of the hardest things to sort of figure out, because we all use the word forgiveness differently. My friend, my colleague, Sylvia Borstein, used to say a lot, forgiveness is not amnesia. And sometimes we think it is, that it means wiping the slate clean or declaring that what happened didn't matter. And maybe it really does matter. I also hesitate a little bit about that intellectually, you should, because what does that mean? And that kind of pressure to feel something you don't feel, and maybe not even know what it is, what it means to you, seems like a little unfair to yourself, to me. And it's more a question, I think, of, in some ways, through self-compassion, we come to a place where we realize, I'm kind of obsessed with this person's actions, or, in the words a friend of mine used after a long bout of just being lost and going over and over and over and over what someone else had done or said, he said, I let him live rent-free in my brain for too long. And sometimes we just want to be free of it's almost like that person and their actions has captured part of us and we want it back. And so we feel the distress of that kind of rumination. We learn to let go of the rumination, come back, feel almost like the wholeness of our being in this moment. And we do that again and again and again, and it actually begins to lose its grip.
So I see we've reached the end of our time, but I want to ask you, and I'm sorry for everybody I couldn't get to their questions, but I want to ask you two final questions that are most appropriate for just going forward and transiting from here. The first one is about the general situation we all face after a year of isolation, and we're still find ourselves in this limited world. How do we make new spaces? And then the second one, which is personal, is someone astonishingly has not read any of your books, and they'd like to know which one to start with.
A lot of people have not read any of my books, but it depends on what you're interested in. I wrote a book 11 years ago called Real Happiness, which is really a guide to beginning or renewing a meditation practice. There's a lot of guided meditations in it. And so that would suit that. My first book was called Loving Kindness, and it's really about loving kindness meditation. My most recent book, somehow I got on the real train, the real this and the real that and the real that. And Real Change is about people in the world that I've met who are really trying to make a difference in the world in the way that contemplative practice also serves them in that work. So they're all kind of different. It's astonishing to me that it's been a year. I realized the last time I had lunch with somebody physically was a year and a day ago. And I had lunch with an editor in New York City about a possible other book. And the whole time we were sitting at this little table somewhere, and I kept thinking, we're awfully close to one another, and nobody was using aerosols as a word in connection to the virus. But I kept thinking, she had the flu. I would feel like awfully close, and she, so it was all weird. And it was during that lunch I decided to leave New York City and come up to my house in Barre, Massachusetts, where I am now. And I thought, I'll go up for 2 weeks with my snow boots. So I'm still here. And it's odd. Everyone is strange. I'm strange. I realize there's so little structure to my day, except for what I bring forth. And it's like a blur that it's gone by like that. And yet I found such profound connections in mediums like this. And it's allowed me a sense of expansion and reach. Like most of what I do, wherever it's sponsored, ends up being kind of international. And I've gotten to hear about the experience of so many more people. And so I'm just trying to honor that and realize that leaving this space will be its own kind of culture shock again. And just to recognize that, and always have a kind of compassion for yourself. Like, this has been hard, and it is hard still. And we need to recognize that and really care for ourselves.
So thanks everybody for your questions. I see some other great questions I wish we had time to get to, but unfortunately I want to keep to our time commitments. And thank you so much, Sharon, for spending the last half hour with us and sharing your wisdom. So I hope everybody can join us on Monday, or if not, a month from now at our next event. And if you have time, you can go to csc.virginia.edu. Left-hand side has a newsletter, and that will announce new speakers and so forth. And otherwise, keep an eye on the website. So look forward to seeing some of you in the future. And thanks again, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you all.